Was last night the biggest win in Cleveland Cavalier history since they won Game 7 of the 2018 ECF against the Boston Celtics. I think you could certainly make that argument. It's ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, turn white. It is going to be a very short, abridged May 14th, 2026 edition of Brandon's World. It's not going to be a very long podcast at all today, as today the NFL schedule is being released. So starting on Tuesday, I will give you my over-unders for every team in the league. We're going to go through like we do my NFL predictions. One day I'll give you the East, the next day I'll give you the West, the North, the South, etc. Uh, today I'm just going to talk very briefly about the NBA playoffs and what I saw in Game 5 between the Spurs and the T-Wolves, which is basically this, that I do believe the Spurs are the best team left in the NBA playoffs. I've been saying it since January that these Spurs look like they're beyond their years. They don't look like they're young. Now, occasionally they do play like they're a little bit too over their end in the playoffs, but they play like they're warning. And Victor Wembanyama, after getting ejected in Game 4, came out in Game 5. He had, 20 something plus points, 17 something rebounds. And that's the thing about Wemby, right? You know, you look up and it's like you would think that he would score 30, 40 points a night, but he doesn't. And, he gets his 20 points, but he impacts the game in so many ways. You know, double digit rebounds, almost double digit blocks. And he does this all in, 30 so minutes, which to me is so impressive. And I've said this before, and it may be hyperbole, but I do truly believe this that Victor Wembanyama, if he stays healthy, he does things that no NBA player has ever done. Not Michael Jordan, not LeBron James. His skill set at his height and his ability to change games. And listen, this is not the Greg Popovich, Tim Duncan, sort of Patriot as Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, boring, do your job dynasty. Victor Wembanyama is flashy. Stefan Castle is flashy. Dylan Harper, I think, is going to be a really good player in this league. And all of a sudden, and I said this on Oklahoma City last year, you'll recall, when everybody says, oh my God, they're the next dynasty in the NBA, look how deep they are, they have all these draft picks. I said, yes, but I also said, they went to Game 7 against the Indiana Pacers in the NBA Finals. Now, the Pacers were a good team. We didn't think they were a great team. And I said, you look at the West, Minnesota's not going away. Denver's not going away. And I said the San Antonio Spurs, who weren't even a playoff team a year ago, they were coming. Excuse me. And I do believe that we are on a collision course for a Spurs Thunder Western Conference Finals. Now, who knows? Maybe Minnesota comes out on Friday, and they play well and they force a Game 7. But out of the T-Wolves still wins. They stole Game 1 at the buzzer, and in Game 4, it took a heroic fourth quarter effort from Anthony Edwards. Where all the Spurs wins, they blew out Minnesota. And I think the difference now between when Minnesota came back down 3-2 against Denver in that series is the Spurs, unlike the Nuggets in that series, do look like the better team. And I think the Spurs will close out Minnesota. Now, in terms of last night, boy, doesn't this Cavs-Pistons series remind you of the 2007 Cavs-Pistons series? And they showed highlights last night, of the Game 5 where LeBron scored 25 points. Now, we didn't get that last night from the Cleveland Cavaliers side. But in that series, the Pistons dominated the first two games. Cavs came back at home. They dominated the next two games. Game 5 was a double overtime game back and forth. The Cavs ended up pulling out of it being behind and then crushed the Pistons in Game 6. Will that formula continue? Will the Cavs finish off Detroit? Listen, the Cavs, in my opinion, are one of the most frustrating teams to watch in the NBA. Because if they just took care of the ball, they would be such a better team. Detroit in the first half had 20 points off turnovers. That's inexcusable. And James Harden was good offensively last night. He turned the ball over a lot. Donovan Mitchell was horrible last night after being great in game four. And it was really, if you think about it, Max Strus, who came in, he had 20 plus points, came in, made some huge threes to save the day. Anytime the Cavs needed a big steal or a big shot to calm the momentum, Max Strus was that guy. And last night was the flaw the Pistons had all season, which was Cade Cunningham's going to be great. Tobias Harris was not great last night. They did not have Duncan Robinson. Now, Jenkins gave them some score, but it was always who's going to be that second scorer. Jalen Duren has not provided that all postseason. And Evan Mobley, even though he drives me nuts for his size and not being physical, did hit a couple of big threes, but that's not what I want Evan Mobley to do. And listen, the Cavs should advance. I thought last night was potentially a franchise-altering, changing win where you can make an argument once they win this series and Donovan Mitchell gets to his first ECF. Maybe they don't make a big change. No, I think the Knicks' physicality will get to them. Who knows? Maybe in game one, the Cavs can steal one in New York because of the whole Russ versus Russ theory. The Knicks who would have a week off if this series starts Sunday, if the Cavs win on Friday. If not, they would have 9 days off if it starts on Tuesday versus the Cavs. And even a Detroit team, right, it would have, 2 days off. Um, Detroit were to come back and win this thing in seven. But I've said it all along. This was the matchup I wanted for the Cavs going into the second round. I said the Cavs cannot lose their former head coach and JB Bickerstaff, who this is the flaw that you're seeing right now, Pistons fans, and not only the roster, but JB Bickerstaff's coaching. Is this really a battle of who can get out of the second round first between Donovan Mitchell and JB Bickerstaff? Um, and the Cavs last night just found a way. Now, I thought they got, even on the road, I thought they got the majority of calls. Now, I thought they could have been more aggressive, right? Going to the basket. And for Detroit, they're going to say that was a loose ball foul on Jared Allen at the end, which certainly it was, but they weren't calling crap all night long. There was many times I thought both teams should have got a call, but this is the playoffs. They are letting them play. And in my opinion, if the Cavs come out in game six and just focus and play right in the first quarter, which they almost never do, Detroit is going to fold because the Cavs have all the momentum. Now, again, back to the franchise alter and changing stuff. I'm still in favor of these rumors out there that the Bucks are interested in talking to the Cavs about Giannis Antetokounmpo, and the Cavs would have to give up Evan Mobley. Which a few years ago, if you asked me would I trade Evan Mobley for Giannis, I would have told you no. Because I thought, Giannis was on the decline with all the injuries, and I thought Evan Mobley had the chance to become a top 10 player in all of the NBA. And I said, in order for the Cavs to win the championship, Evan Mobley has to be their best player, not Donovan Mitchell. And I said this when Darius Garland was still a Cav. Oh, and by the way, I still believe that. But Evan Mobley is nowhere close to being the Cavs' best player. I mean, you watch him last night at 7 foot tall. He can't even back down Karis LeVert. Are you kidding me? And then his inability to take the ball to the basket, drive to the rim, and get fouls. Why is he shooting floaters? Oh, so listen, the Cavs are going to get past this round. Then I think the Knicks are just way too deep. The Cavs are a flawed team. I mean, you even saw it last night. They don't play well, especially on the road. They can play great, and we saw it in game four. They can play well in spurts, but spurts is not a championship team. And I've been saying this that regardless of who wins the East, I think they're going to get clobbered by Oklahoma City, San Antonio, or how even Minnesota, they do come back to up 3 games to two. But for the Knicks, if they do move on and they do win the East, it would validate them firing Tom Thibodeau a year ago. So the way I look at it, my conference finals pick going into the playoffs, if you remember, was Spurs over Thunder in 6 and Knicks over Cavs in 5. And I will stick to those predictions. So thank you so much for watching this quick podcast here today on Brandon's World. When we come back on Tuesday, once again, we'll break down where we stand in the conference finals, as no matter what, either game one of the ECF will kick off, or game one of the WCF will have already happened, or we'll be setting up both matchups in both of these game sixes reaching game 7. Like that clip from the Brandon's World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brandon's World podcast right here on YouTube.